My wife's supportive tattoo for her sick friend was actually a sign of her affair. After a near-death experience, she wants me back, but I've already moved on. I'm Marvin, 28M, and I've been married to Keisha, 27F, for 5 years. We met during our sophomore year in college when we were paired up for a group project in our environmental science class. I remember being struck by her passion for conservation and her infectious laugh. We started dating a few months later, and it felt like we were meant to be together. After graduation, I enlisted in the military, following in my father's footsteps, while Keisha pursued a career in environmental consulting. We got married in a small ceremony surrounded by close friends and family. Our early years of marriage were filled with the typical ups and downs of newlyweds, but we always managed to work through our issues. We supported each other's careers, even when it meant spending time apart due to my military duties and her field work. Last year, we started talking about starting a family. We were both excited about the prospect of becoming parents and had even started setting up a nursery in our spare room. Everything seemed perfect, or so I thought. 3 months ago, I was deployed for a training mission overseas. It was supposed to be a routine assignment, nothing out of the ordinary. Keisha and I had been through separations before, and while they were always tough, we managed to stay connected through video calls and messages. This time, though, something felt different. Keisha's messages became less frequent and shorter. When we did video call, she seemed distracted and would often cut our conversations short, citing work commitments. I chalked it up to her being busy with a new project at work, but a nagging feeling in my gut told me something wasn't right. I returned home last week, a few days earlier than planned. I was excited to surprise Keisha, imagining her joy at seeing me walk through the door unexpectedly. Instead, I walked into a nightmare. The first thing I noticed when Keisha opened the door was a new tattoo on her neck. It wasn't just any tattoo, it was the name Johnny with a small heart next to it. My stomach dropped. Johnny, 29M, is supposedly Keisha's best friend from work. They've known each other for about a year, and I've only met him a couple of times at office parties. He always seemed nice enough, but I never thought much about their friendship. When I asked Keisha about the tattoo, she just shrugged it off like it was no big deal. She said Johnny had been diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer a month ago, and she got the tattoo to show her support. She didn't even bother to discuss it with me beforehand. When I expressed my discomfort with her having another man's name permanently inked on her body, she got defensive and said I was being insensitive to Johnny's condition. But that wasn't all. As I moved further into the house, I started noticing other changes. There were men's clothes in our laundry that weren't mine. The guest room looked like it had been recently used, with rumpled sheets and a few personal items that I didn't recognize scattered around. The bathroom had an extra toothbrush and unfamiliar toiletries. When I questioned Keisha about these things, she admitted that Johnny had been staying with her while I was away. She claimed it was because he needed help during his chemo treatments, and she didn't want him to be alone. But something about her explanation didn't sit right with me. I was furious. Not only did my wife get another man's name tattooed on her without talking to me, but she also had him living in our house while I was gone. I felt betrayed and disrespected. When I tried to talk to her about how inappropriate this was, she kept insisting that I was overreacting and that Johnny needed her support during this difficult time. The more I pressed for answers, the more defensive Keisha became. She accused me of being jealous and unsupportive, saying that I should understand the importance of being there for a friend in need. But all I could think about was how she had made these decisions without even considering how I might feel about them. I couldn't stand being in the house anymore, so I've been staying at my old buddy Jake's, 28M, place for the past few days. Jake and I go way back to basic training, and he's been a rock for me during this whole ordeal. Keisha keeps calling and texting, saying we need to talk things through, but I'm not ready to face her yet. I feel like our marriage is falling apart, and I don't know if I can trust her anymore. To make matters worse, I ran into our neighbor, Tom, 45M, yesterday. Tom and his wife Sarah have lived next door to us since we bought our house 3 years ago. They've always been friendly, often inviting us over for barbecues or to watch football games. When Tom saw me, he looked uncomfortable, like he was hiding something. After some prodding, he told me that he saw Johnny's car parked in our driveway almost every night while I was away. He also mentioned hearing loud music and laughter coming from our house on several occasions, which is odd because Keisha isn't usually the party type. Tom's revelation hit me like a punch to the gut. It was one thing for Keisha to claim she was helping a sick friend, but hosting parties while I was deployed? That didn't sound like the woman I married. Tom apologized for not telling me sooner, saying he didn't want to get involved in our personal business. But I could see the pity in his eyes, and it made me wonder if everyone in the neighborhood knew what was going on except me. I'm seriously considering filing for divorce. Am I overreacting? I understand that Johnny is going through a tough time with his cancer diagnosis, but I can't help feeling that there's more to their relationship than just friendship. The tattoo, him living in our house, the secrecy, it all feels like a huge betrayal. My parents are telling me to try and work things out with Keisha, saying that maybe I'm jumping to conclusions. They've always loved Keisha, treating her like the daughter they never had. My mom, Ellen, 56F, keeps reminding me of how happy Keisha and I were at our wedding, how we talked about growing old together. My dad, Robert, 58M, is more pragmatic. He says that marriage is hard work and that we shouldn't throw away years of commitment over what might be a misunderstanding. But my gut feeling tells me something isn't right. I've always trusted Keisha, but now I find myself questioning everything about our relationship. Was she really working late all those nights over the past year, or was she with Johnny? Did she ever really want to start a family with me, or was that just a way to keep me from suspecting anything? I'm also angry at myself for not seeing the signs earlier. Looking back, I realize Keisha had been acting a bit distant before my deployment. She was always on her phone, texting and smiling. I assumed it was work-related, but now I'm not so sure. There were times when she would abruptly end phone calls when I entered the room, or quickly switch tabs on her laptop when I walked by. At the time, I dismissed these things, not wanting to be the jealous, paranoid husband. Now, I wonder if I was just being naive. To add to all this, Keisha and I had talked about getting matching tattoos last year to celebrate our anniversary. We spent weeks discussing designs, something that would symbolize our love and commitment to each other. But when it came time to actually get them, Keisha backed out, saying she wasn't ready for such a permanent commitment. The irony of her now having Johnny's name tattooed on her neck is not lost on me. It feels like a slap in the face, a permanent reminder of her betrayal etched into her skin. I'm torn between wanting to salvage my marriage and feeling like I deserve better than this. The thought of divorcing Keisha breaks my heart. We've been through so much together: college graduation, my military training, her first big promotion. We've supported each other through the loss of her grandmother and my struggle with PTSD after my first deployment. How could she throw all of that away? But at the same time, I don't know if I can ever look at her the same way again. Every time I see that tattoo, it's going to be a reminder of her betrayal. How can I trust her words when her actions show such little regard for our marriage? And even if Johnny really is sick, how could she make such a huge decision without even talking to me about it first? I'm scheduled to meet with a lawyer next week to discuss my options. I never thought I'd be in this position, especially not after only 5 years of marriage. I always believed Keisha and I would grow old together, maybe have a couple of kids, watch them grow up. Now all those dreams feel like they're turning to dust. I'm feeling lost, angry, and heartbroken all at once. Part of me wants to believe there's an innocent explanation for all of this, that I'm blowing things out of proportion. But another part of me feels like I'd be a fool to ignore all these red flags. Am I wrong for considering divorce over this? Should I try to work things out with Keisha? Or is this betrayal too big to overcome? I could really use some outside perspective on this whole mess. Update 1, it's been 2 weeks since my last post, and a lot has happened. First, I want to thank everyone for their advice and support. It really helped me gain some perspective on the situation. After much consideration, I decided to file for divorce. The day after I met with the lawyer, I went back to our house to talk to Keisha. I wanted to give her one last chance to explain herself and maybe salvage our marriage. But what I found only confirmed my worst fears. When I arrived at the house, Johnny's car was in the driveway. I used my key to enter, and I found Keisha and Johnny cuddled up on our couch, watching a movie. They jumped apart when they saw me, and Keisha started stammering out excuses. Johnny, on the other hand, just sat there looking guilty. I lost it. I demanded to know what was really going on between them. After a lot of back and forth, Keisha finally admitted that she and Johnny had been having an affair for the past 6 months. It started as a friendship, but it turned into something more while I was away on shorter training missions. By the time I left for my 3-month deployment, they were already deeply involved. The tattoo, she said, was Johnny's idea. He convinced her to get it as a symbol of their love, knowing I wouldn't be around to object. The cancer story was just a cover-up they came up with when I returned unexpectedly early from my deployment. Johnny isn't sick at all, it was all a lie to explain his constant presence in our lives. I was devastated. Not only had Keisha cheated on me, but she had also lied about something as serious as cancer. It felt like I didn't even know who she was anymore. The woman I married, the one who was passionate about honesty and integrity, seemed to have disappeared. As I stood there, trying to process everything, memories of our life together flashed through my mind. Our first date at that little Italian restaurant near campus, where Keisha spilled red wine all over her white dress but laughed it off. The night I proposed, on the beach under a full moon. Our wedding day, when she looked at me with such love and promise as we said our vows. How could all of that lead to this moment? I told them both to get out of my house. Keisha tried to apologize, saying she never meant to hurt me and that she still loved me. But I couldn't bear to hear it. Her words felt hollow after everything she'd done. I told her she could come back for her things when I wasn't there, but our marriage was over. The next day, I filed for divorce. I also informed my commanding officer about the situation, and he's been incredibly supportive. He's helping me arrange a transfer to a different base, so I won't have to see Keisha around town. The idea of running into her and Johnny at the grocery store or the local coffee shop is more than I can handle right now. Keisha's been calling and texting nonstop, begging for another chance. She says she made a mistake and wants to work things out. But I can't get past the betrayal. It's not just the affair, it's the elaborate lies, the disrespect of bringing another man into our home, and the permanent reminder of her infidelity etched on her skin. My parents, who initially encouraged me to work things out, now fully support my decision to divorce. They're disgusted by Keisha's actions and have told her not to contact them anymore. It breaks my heart to see how hurt they are. They really thought of Keisha as a daughter, and her betrayal has affected them deeply too. I'm staying with my buddy Jake until the transfer goes through. It's been tough, but I'm trying to focus on the future. I've started working out more and reconnecting with old friends. It helps take my mind off things, even if just for a little while. Jake's been a real lifesaver through all of this. He's let me crash on his couch, listened to me rant and rave, and even stopped me from doing something stupid like confronting Johnny at his workplace. Having a friend who understands the military life and the unique pressures it puts on relationships has been invaluable. The hardest part is letting go of the future I thought we'd have together. We were talking about starting a family, and now all those dreams are shattered. I keep thinking about the nursery we had started setting up. The crib we bought is still in boxes in the spare room. The stuffed animals Keisha's mom had already started buying for her future grandchild. It all feels like a cruel joke now. I'm meeting with my lawyer again tomorrow to go over the divorce proceedings. Keisha's asking for a chance to talk before we move forward, but I don't see the point. I feel like anything she says now would just be another lie. How can I believe anything she tells me after all the deception? This whole experience has been a nightmare, but I'm trying to stay strong. I know it's going to be a long road ahead, but I'm determined to come out of this stronger. Some days are harder than others. There are moments when I miss Keisha so much it physically hurts, when I want nothing more than to believe her apologies and try to make things work. But then I remember finding her with Johnny, and the pain turns to anger all over again. I've started seeing a therapist to help me process everything. It's not easy opening up about all of this, but I know I need help to work through my feelings. The therapist is helping me understand that it's okay to grieve for my marriage, even as I move forward with the divorce. Looking ahead, I'm trying to focus on my career and personal growth. The transfer to a new base feels like a fresh start, a chance to reinvent myself. I'm thinking about taking some classes, maybe working towards a master's degree. Anything to keep my mind occupied and moving forward. Thank you all again for your support. It means more than you know. To those who shared similar stories, know that your strength and resilience inspire me. And to those who are going through something similar, hang in there. It may not feel like it now, but there is life after betrayal. Update 2. It's been a month since my last update, and things have taken an unexpected turn. I thought I was done with surprises, but life had other plans. First, the divorce proceedings are moving forward. Keisha initially contested the divorce, but after a heated meeting with our lawyers, she agreed to an uncontested divorce. We're now in the process of dividing our assets. Thankfully, we don't have any children, which makes things a bit simpler. The transfer to my new base was approved, and I was scheduled to leave next week. I was looking forward to a fresh start away from all the painful memories. But then something happened that threw a wrench in my plans. 3 days ago, I received a call from Keisha's sister, Emily, 25F. She was crying and barely coherent. When she finally calmed down, she told me that Keisha had been in a serious car accident. She was driving to her parents' house when another driver ran a red light and T-boned her car. Keisha's in the ICU with severe injuries. I was shocked. Despite everything that had happened between us, I still cared about Keisha's well-being. I rushed to the hospital, not sure what to expect. When I arrived, I found Keisha's family in the waiting room. Her parents looked relieved to see me, which surprised me given how things had ended between Keisha and me. The doctors informed us that Keisha had suffered a traumatic brain injury and multiple fractures. She was in a medically induced coma to help reduce brain swelling. They weren't sure when she would wake up or what her condition would be like when she did. As I sat there in the hospital, surrounded by Keisha's grieving family, I felt a whirlwind of emotions. Anger at Keisha for her betrayal, concern for her health, confusion about my role in this situation, and guilt for feeling relieved that I had filed for divorce before this happened. Then came another shock. Johnny showed up at the hospital. He acted like he had every right to be there, which infuriated both me and Keisha's family. Keisha's father, John, 58M, who had always treated me like a son, physically removed Johnny from the waiting room, telling him he had no place there after what he'd done to their family. Seeing Johnny made me realize something. Despite Keisha's betrayal, I still cared for her more than he did. While I was there, worried sick about her condition, he seemed more concerned about how this would affect him. His presence felt more like a performance than genuine concern. I've decided to postpone my transfer for now. Even though we're getting divorced, I feel like I need to be here for Keisha and her family during this difficult time. Her parents have asked me to help make medical decisions since I'm still legally her husband, and they trust my judgment. This situation has brought up a lot of complicated feelings. I find myself sitting by Keisha's hospital bed, holding her hand and talking to her, even though I know she can't hear me. I tell her about my day, about the weather, about anything really. Sometimes I catch myself slipping into old habits, like I'm talking to my wife rather than my soon-to-be ex-wife. Keisha's parents have been incredibly grateful for my presence. They've apologized repeatedly for how things ended between Keisha and me, saying they raised her better than that. It's clear they're struggling to reconcile the daughter they thought they knew with the woman who betrayed her marriage. I'm not sure what this means for our divorce or my future plans. I know I don't want to reconcile, the betrayal is still too fresh, and I don't think I could ever trust Keisha again. But I also can't just walk away when she's fighting for her life. This whole situation has me questioning everything. Am I doing the right thing by staying? Should I just proceed with my transfer and let her family handle this? I feel like I'm in limbo, unable to move forward but also unwilling to go back. I'm supposed to meet with my lawyer tomorrow to discuss how this affects our divorce proceedings. I'm not sure what to do. Part of me wants to fast-track the divorce before Keisha wakes up, to finally be free of this whole mess. But another part feels like that would be cruel given her condition. My friends have mixed opinions. Jake thinks I should stick to my original plan and leave, saying I don't owe Keisha anything after what she did. But my childhood friend, Lisa, 28F, says that staying shows strength of character and that I might regret it if I leave now. For now, I'm taking it one day at a time. I go to the hospital, I talk to the doctors, I support Keisha's family as best I can. Then I go back to Jake's place and try to process everything that's happened. I could really use some advice. How do I navigate this situation without losing myself in the process? How do I balance my need to move on with the obligation I feel towards Keisha and her family? This is uncharted territory for me, and I'm feeling lost all over again. Update 3, it's been 2 months since my last update, and I'm still trying to process everything that's happened. Life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them, and I've certainly had my share lately. Keisha woke up from her coma about 3 weeks after my last post. Her recovery has been slow but steady. She suffered some memory loss due to the brain injury, which has complicated things even further. When Keisha first regained consciousness, she didn't remember the affair or our impending divorce. In fact, she thought we were still happily married. The doctors advised against shocking her with too much information at once, so for the first few days, I played along, visiting her and holding her hand like nothing had changed. It was surreal and emotionally draining. On one hand, I was relieved that Keisha was recovering. On the other, pretending to be her loving husband brought back all the pain of her betrayal. Every time she smiled at me or asked about our future plans, I felt like I was betraying myself. About a week after she woke up, Keisha started having flashes of memory. She remembered Johnny and became visibly distressed. That's when her doctors said it was okay to gradually reintroduce her to reality. I wasn't there when her parents told her about the affair and our divorce. From what they told me, she broke down completely. She asked to see me, but I couldn't bring myself to face her just yet. A few days later, I finally visited Keisha alone. She looked so small and vulnerable in that hospital bed, nothing like the woman who had betrayed me so callously. She cried and apologized profusely, saying she remembered everything now and that she regretted her actions more than anything in her life. I listened to her, but I felt oddly detached. The anger I had felt before had faded, replaced by a deep sadness for what we had lost. I told her I forgave her, not for her sake, but for my own peace of mind. However, I also made it clear that forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation. Our marriage was over, and no amount of apologies could change that. Keisha accepted this with a quiet resignation. She asked if we could still be friends, but I told her I needed time and space to heal. I haven't seen her since that day, though her family keeps me updated on her progress. As for Johnny, he tried to contact Keisha at the hospital several times, but her family and the hospital staff kept him away at my request. Last I heard, he had moved to another city. Good riddance, if you ask me. The divorce is still proceeding, albeit more slowly due to Keisha's condition. My lawyer assures me that her medical situation doesn't significantly impact our divorce agreement, which is a relief. I've decided to go through with my transfer after all. Keisha's on the road to recovery, and her family is there to support her. I've done what I can, but now it's time for me to focus on healing myself. As I pack up my life and prepare for my move, I feel a mix of emotions. Sadness for the life I thought I would have, anger at the betrayal that shattered that dream, relief at finally moving forward, and hope for what the future might hold. I don't know what's next for me, but for the first time in months, I'm looking forward to finding out. Thank you all for your support throughout this journey. Your advice and kind words have been a lifeline during the darkest moments.